Hello, Sim fans. SimFanatic with you, finally bringing you a review of the Piper Arrow 3 from Just Flight. During this review, we'll be going over the aircraft model, cockpit, systems, sounds, and flight dynamics. We'll be flying the aircraft for a touch and go, as well as running it through power on and power off stalls, ending with a side slip to a landing, all at the beautiful TNCM Princess Juliana Payware scenery by Airworthy Designs. So stick around, Sim fans. More to come your way. Okay, Sim fans, so before we get started on this beautiful PA-28R Piper Arrow 3 aircraft review, I want to let all of you know that I am a real-world pilot. I have flown the Piper Arrow 3 several times, and I got my PPL and its cousin, the fixed gear and fixed pitch prop Piper Warrior PA-151. So I'll give you my honest opinion on where this aircraft feels like the real thing and where there are some areas that differs from the real-life counterpart. Now, I want to make sure that everyone knows that I don't have extensive experience flying the PA-28R in real life, but again, I have flown it several times for real. So let's do some background on this aircraft. So Just Flight released the aircraft exactly 4 weeks ago from while I'm doing this video review. They released it originally on Wednesday, March 10th. Today is April 7th. So 4 weeks ago, they released this aircraft. This is Just Flight's first aircraft release for Microsoft Flight Simulator. They have released an update for this aircraft since the original release on March 10th, where they added many fixes and enhancements to the airplane. Now, I've gone over those updates on my March 28th weekly top 5 announcements for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and you can find that in my other video, so do check that out. All right, so let's go over the details for this aircraft. Okay, so let's go over some of the systems requirements obtained from Aerosoft's site. So of course you need Microsoft Flight Simulator, so 2020 Standard Deluxe or Premium Deluxe Edition, and it can be, purchased from the Microsoft Store, of course. You can get it from the Steam version, or you can do, like I have it, through the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. The processor CPU that you'll need is Intel i5-4460 or an AMD Ryzen 3 1200. They recommend at least an Intel i5-8400 or an AMD Ryzen 5 1500X or higher. 8 gigs is the minimum RAM for the memory, and with 16 gigs recommended. For the graphics card, you'll want at least an NVIDIA GTX 770 or an AMD Radeon RX 570, and recommended by Aerosoft is an NVIDIA GTX 970 or higher or an AMD Radeon RX 590 or higher. You'll want operating system of Windows 10, and you'll want a joystick or compatible game controller. You can use the Xbox One controller for Windows if you do so choose. Tonight we will be flying using the Alpha flight controls, the Bravo, Honeycomb Bravo throttle quadrant, and the Thrustmaster TPR pedals. And finally, you'll want at least 1 gigabyte of hard drive space. The cost of the aircraft right now is $44.99 US, and it needs to be purchased and downloaded from Just Flight site directly. It will go into your community folder. There's an installer, and I'll have a link below in the details of the video. It is not yet available in the Microsoft Flight Simulator Marketplace, and please be aware, you'll see an Arrow 3, but it is not Just Flight's. It's not the aircraft we'll be looking at today, Sim fans. That's the Carenado version, and I strongly recommend this version, Just Flight's version of the aircraft. Okay, Sim fans, now about the model of this aircraft. So Just Flight, in my opinion, has done a real good job for both the exterior textures and interior textures of this aircraft. They built the aircraft using real-world aircraft plans and comprehensive photography of the real deal. And so taking a look at this, you can see that the airplane looks spectacular. So we'll just kind of take a look at this. But if you look at the, you've got the PBR textures, of course, that most any aircrafts are going to have, but they do shine. They do look really, really good. You've got the underside, the leading edge, that all looks really great. As you can see every rivet has been modeled on this airplane. You can see that there's dirt in that's kind of washed down on the fuselage of the aircraft. The reflections off the windows all look great. The propeller, beautiful job there. Actually, they improved the animation of the propeller. We'll get to here in a moment. Obviously, the chocks and the tie downs. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I like the. They've even got SimFans. If we go up a little closer here, you know, they even got the fuel vent that's there. Landing gear, the doors and the landing gear all look well and done and detailed. Once we get this aircraft up in the air, we'll take a look at the underside of it, undercarriage of it, because there's a lot to point out there as well. But, you know, obviously, you know, you've got the traction strip that's next to the door. So when you're getting in and out of the aircraft, you have traction there. Of course, the footstep, the stabilator, the vertical stabilizer, all well detailed. Again, the aircraft is just, the texture work is really, really good on this, in my opinion. And you can even see the antenna there for the ADF and that. So yeah, very, very well done on the outside and the exterior of the aircraft. Okay, with that, let's look on the inside. Okay, SimFans, now on the inside of this aircraft, as you can see, great job by Just Flight. Once again, the development team with this, as you can see, they have a lot of wear and tear on the pilot side yoke. You can see there. And then as you would expect, and in the real thing, you're going to typically see in the passenger yoke, not as much wear and tear, obviously, because the pilot's yoke just gets used more. Great detail on the panel and the textures there. You know, all of this just looks magnificent. You know, there's no signs of stitching that I have been able to pick up. The reflections on the inside with the stitching and the leather of the you know, the panel here all looks good. The switches, the circuit breakers, the instruments, all that stuff is accurately placed like the real thing. Down to the flap lever, of course, your trim and your parking brake handle, the fuel selector switch. We'll get into that in a bit here. But even like the dirt on the floor, this is what I love, SimFans. It's like they even took the time to actually show how you would typically find this aircraft, being an older aircraft. You know, the Piper Warrior and Arrow that I've flown for real, the Warrior's rentals and so is the Arrow. So typically you would find that it's not going to be meticulously clean when you rent these aircraft. And so I think Just Flight did a superb job in showing that with this model. And then of course you have the seats that are worn and torn. Well, maybe not torn, but definitely worn. The upholstery, maybe a little bit dirty there. As we look up at the top ceiling, zoom out a little bit here, you can tell the texture work here is really well done. You can see there's stains, maybe oil grease spots on the roof or on the ceiling rather of the aircraft. Very, very well done. Let's go ahead and move towards the back here, SimFans. So, you know, and same goes for back here. Again, you see dirt on the floor, maybe some, you know, grass clippings, weeds and that sort of thing. But again, just throughout this aircraft, very, very well done, interior and exterior with the textures for the airplane. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've been in the real thing, as I mentioned, and this looks real, SimFans. This looks like the real deal. Okay, so we'll move on from the interior and exterior, but I definitely give them 2 thumbs up on that work. Okay, SimFans, so let's get on to the animation. So there are several animations that Just Flight has put into this aircraft, such as your pilot window there. You can open and close, of course, complete with sounds. The other thing that we have is, finally, we have a door that works. Now, the thing about a Piper Arrow, and same's true for the Warrior, is you have 2 latches, actually. You have a top latch that you have to click, and notice it actually pops out just a little bit. If you've seen some of my live streams, I show that, but then you click this handle for the door, and it doesn't just open automatically. You actually have to click the button, click right down there on the handle, and push that door open. So now we've got the door open, as we can see from the outside, and so we've got animations there. So the other thing we have, SimFans, of course, are the sun visors. Those animate as well, of course, just like you can see here. The other thing that we have an animation for is if we want to open and close the baggage door. And so we'll click that and we can see that that just popped up. We should have went on this side, but let's go ahead and close it and we'll check it out really quick here. So we can see that's animated, as well as the oil door. Click on that, and now we can see our oil door has opened. And we'll close that back down and see that's animated. So there are the animations for you, SimFans. And again, some of these are controlled. There are click points for them as well if you want to click on them, make it more realistic, but you can also do it with the Just Flight EFB or electronic flight bag, as we see here that we've been manipulating those options. Okay, so let's go ahead and close the doors here. So we can just simply do that with the EFB or click on the handle, latch the door there. Remember to latch that top latch. Good to go there. And we've got the window up as well. So a few other things you have, and as an option on this EFB, we'll go through these. As you can tell, chocks and tie down. So you just turn those options off, and now you can see the chocks and tie downs that we had previously are now gone. And then, of course, you can turn off the right yoke and left yoke, either using the EFB or clicking these click points as well. The other thing I want to show quick, the different systems. And so like you can see here, right now we have for GPS, we have the GNS 430. But if we go up here, we can change that. So then we can turn on the 530 that a lot of us are familiar with and some of the default aircraft. And then click it again, and now you have the GPS 100, so very minimal. Your comm, radio, and nav radios come over here, and so you have those options as well with this aircraft. So Just Flight did add a lot of options for us to take a look at for this aircraft in terms of navigation equipment. All right, so a few things left on the aircraft model. So those are 4096 by 4096 textures. And they use PBR or physically based rendering materials with real-time environment reflections. So that adds to the quality and realism. And as we saw, there's detailed normal mapping for down to the rivet precision of the aircraft surfaces, as we saw. Now, I haven't counted every single rivet, but apparently it has every rivet that's in the real thing. So if you have one of these aircraft, post in the comments below if you want to count them. All right. So some things about the cockpit we already looked at, but since we're doing a day flight, we won't see this, but there are dimmable instrument, radio, and dome lights with separate control circuits. We took a look at the tablet EFB, so we can control the options there, but you can do a cold and dark or ready for takeoff or ready for start aircraft states. The other nice thing about the aircraft is it has persistent aircraft states, which allow you to always return to the cockpit in the same state that you last left it, which is pretty neat. There is an option to do automatic fuel tank switching, as you might have seen in the EFB right at the top here. Now, red is off. I like it to be realistic, so I leave it off. So do remember to switch your fuel tank, SimFans. Otherwise, you might starve one of your tanks and your engine will run out of fuel, and it's okay. You just switch it to the one that has fuel and you'll be good to go. It's got a lot of different things, including aircraft failures like spark plug fouling, vapor lock, oil use, and battery failure. So those are pretty cool little additions there that add to the realism of this aircraft. A flight computer with useful information such as fuel burn, endurance, speed, and wind speed direction is also included. And then, of course, fully functional and comprehensive IFR capable avionics. And do check out the link below because you can see what all of those are. I'm not going to go through every single one of them for this aircraft review, but if you want more information, of course, check out Aerosoft's site. The other thing it does have is independent operated left and right altimeter, so that's pretty nice. So you can actually set the altimeter from both sides. As you can see, there's a right altimeter switch and, of course, the left altimeter switch, and those are independent. Okay, now on to the aircraft systems. Now, we did touch on some of those, but one of the other things worth mentioning is there are custom-coded electrical system with functional circuit breakers, realistic landing gear system with emergency and automatic release at low air speeds, functioning alternate air and static source controls. Lighting systems include separate lighting control for instruments and realistic implementation of navigation light and radio light rheostat. Now, that's one thing I'll stop on that. And I have mentioned several times when using this aircraft in the live stream, we'll watch for this and I'll highlight it once we get this bird up and running. But Just Flight has done a really good job in making the navigation lights realistic. You don't see these huge, overly powered starbursts that look completely unrealistic, like they were maybe painted with a Crayola crayon. You know what I mean? So in the daytime, they're dimmer, and the nighttime, they're brighter, and they're not overly powering. So I think Just Flight did a really good job with those. There is a functional electric trim control in the yoke. requires electric trim button to be pushed, a functional ELT, which is automatically triggered above 4.6 Gs, and again, many other details. What I really think is cool is once the engine is running, the passenger door automatically closes with the airflow, and you'll see vibrating engine exhaust and the aircraft rocking back and forth. And we'll take a look at that here in a moment once we get this started up. Now, as for sounds, Just Flight uses a feature in MSFS wide sound package to take full advantage of those capabilities. And from Aerosoft's site, every little detail has been faithfully recreated based on high fidelity recordings from real life PA-28s. And I'll tell you what, I've heard the real thing, been in the real thing. Once again, I know I mentioned that before, but it does sound real, folks. It does sound like the real thing. So yeah, the engine sounds, the engine vibration, the wind noise, the switches, yeah, all of that stuff sounds very, very, very good and authentic. Including even the retractable gear and the whistling it makes as it pulls up and down. Now, for the liveries, the aircraft is supplied with 11 paint schemes, and it also includes, which is a nice touch, a PSD for those that have Photoshop or other utilities, paint kit that is included that you can create your own paint scheme. So pretty cool there. Flight dynamics, we'll get into that as we fly it. I think that they're really good. I will certainly say that of all the general aviation aircraft out there, I feel that this one is the most realistic for flight dynamics. And from Aerosoft's site, they state the Aero 3 features realistic and accurate flight dynamics based on real-world performance and handling data and input from aero pilots. I do think it's, again, the best general aviation aircraft out there so far for Microsoft Flight Simulator in terms of flight dynamics. Now, with that being said, SimFans, it's not perfect, but it's really, really good. Let's take a look at all of this in action. We'll get this bird started up. We're going to do a touch and go here at TNCM. Once we do a touch and go, I'm going to run through with a power off and a power on stall, and we'll talk about that. We'll see how this performs. I have done it with the real thing, with the Warrior anyway. I assume the Aero will be fairly similar. And also we'll be doing a side slip to a landing before we return to the airport here, shut down, and then give a summary of the aircraft. So let's go ahead and get started with that, SimFans. Okay, SimFans, so let's go ahead and start up this bird. And so the first thing to do with this aircraft is to make sure that you have your fuel tank set. So we got the left tank selected. That's typical. We have both the tanks equally full. So we'll just go ahead and switch it to the left tank to start with. Very important, because if you don't do that, you're not going to get the engine started. I do have the, again, the Honeycomb Bravo throttle quadrant. So I'm going to put my mixture at full, my prop to full, and then I'm going to put just a little bit of throttle in there. I'm going to turn on the battery switch. That's something to note too. Out of the box, when this was first released, the rocker switches for the alpha flight controls did not work. So you'd hit the battery, you would hear the gyroscope that would start spin up that you're hearing in the background, but it wouldn't actually turn the battery switch here on. So, but they did fix that with a later patch that I referred to earlier in this review. Okay, so once that's set, we should be good to go. Of course, as any time you would start up the prop, you'd open up the window like we do here and yell clear. So we'll say clear. All right, so now that that's done, now we can go ahead and we should be able to get this bird started. The other thing that does work, and I'm going to be using my alpha flight controls as well, is the magneto switch. So I can start the aircraft up. There it goes. And you can hear that sound, SimFans. Listen to that sound. Oh, yeah. And as we can see, notice how that aircraft is rocking back and forth. And so if we throttle this up, you can really see it rock back and forth, and that's what it does. So definitely replicated there very well. All right, so now that we got it started up, now we can turn on the alternator, which does work, and our switches for beacon I should have had on already, and then the nav lights as well. So if we go out, now we can see. So that's what I wanted to show. See how that beacon? It's pretty realistic. It's not this huge overpowering sunburst. And you know what I'm talking about. I fly X-Plane as well, and many of the aircraft, it's just over-exaggerated when you look at those navigation lights and beacons. So I think Just Flight nailed it there. All right, so now that's done. We're pretty much set. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Garmin. So as you can see, we've got the standard, we've got the 430. We can click that, and now we've got the 530. I think most of us are used to, but if you really want to get the brass tacks and get more basic, you can go with the GPS 100. But this is the default one, and I like it. It's fine. I've been typically using that one. So, but we're going to stay right around TNCM here, so we're not going to get too far away. So we don't really need to mess with that. The autopilot system does work very nicely. One thing I'll mention is don't try to dink. If you have a honeycomb Bravo throttle quadrant, don't try to use the vertical speed indicator, because if you try to change the speeds on that, it could cause your autopilot to go haywire. Let's go ahead and get our aircraft ready to take off. We're doing standard pressure today, SimFans with clear skies, just so we can see this airplane in all of its glory. But we are using the beautiful scenery from Airworthy Designs, TNCM, at St. Martin, Princess Juliana International. So, okay, let's go ahead and start taxiing to our runway. Okay, SimFans, we'll go ahead and release the parking brake. And start rolling. Be using Track IR for this flight. And we'll just scoot on over here. We'll do a short takeoff from runway 10. We'll hold short here really quick, SimFan. So we'll turn on the lights here. All right. So you can see the strobes now working, as well as our landing light. All right. Okay, SimFans, let's go ahead and take off. Aircraft coming in here, so we'll go ahead and kind of trim a little bit for elevator. And we're just going to get this bird right up in the air. All right, so full throttle. And we'll pull back on the yoke at about 60 knots. All right, now we'll just let this bird kind of take off. And climbing, I'm gonna hit the gear up on my Bravo throttle quadrant. And you can see the undercarriage and the landing gear retract there, which looks great. So SimFans, we're going to do right traffic, and we're going to do a quick touch and go off of runway 10 here. So we'll climb to about 1,000 feet. We're above 400, so we'll take that notch of flaps out. And we'll take a little bit of power out. Get our nose down a little bit. Certainly not a perfect pattern there work, but hey, it's all right. Trim this bird out a little bit. And we see that aircraft that landed over there. By the way, I said heading bug, but I changed my course line, but that'll work. Usually I do the heading bugs, so please excuse me for that. Mix up a little high here. Pull some power out. Now we got an aircraft back taxiing on runway 10-28. All right, gumps check. Gas, full. Undercarriage. Put our landing gear down. Again, let you see that animation there. Go ahead and put in 1 notch of flaps. And when we're about 45 degrees, which we are, we'll start banking back and start our descent. Add a little trim. Continue our descent. Put in our 2nd notch of flaps. Trim again. Now let's start making our way for base to final. A little low on the pappy, so bring our nose up just a little bit. Add a little power. Little low goose, not my best approach here, but last notch of flaps. See, those are fully down. All right, SimFans. Final for runway 10, touch and go. Now we get about right here. We can just start gradually pulling out that throttle. Adding trim. Pull up, pull up, pull up. There we go. Not the best landing ever. Pull up our flaps. Go full power. Bounced it a little bit there. Didn't get it slowed down, but that's okay. Alright, SimFans. We'll go for a power off and power on stall to demonstrate that. So we'll go ahead and climb to, let's go ahead and climb to roughly 3,000 feet. And we'll demonstrate those, and then we'll come back in for a side slip to a landing. And we'll finish up with this aircraft review here. Let's take a look at the outside texture work underneath the aircraft. So something else I like, SimFans, you've got the undercarriage with the grease spots and the oil spots and the stains and the wear, and that, again, just gorgeous detail that Just Flight has done on the textures, so the external textures of this aircraft. We'll go ahead and turn off our landing light. And then also, if we look up here, once again, looking at this prop, they did add better animations of the propeller with the update. I thought it was all right even before that, but even better now. As we can see when we go inside the aircraft, has that real sensation of the propeller turning like that, and do love that addition. All right, so let's go ahead and first demonstrate a power off stall. Now, the one thing I will say about this aircraft, and hopefully the engines aren't too loud, but I want to leave them like that because that's how it would sound in the aircraft. But the one thing that I will say about the Piper aircraft, at least with the Warrior and Arrow, they're very stable aircraft, so they are extremely hard to stall. I mean, in real life, I've taken the Warrior and I pulled as far back on the yoke as I possibly could, and on a power off stall or a power on stall, it takes everything to get the aircraft to stall, and even when it stalls, it doesn't really overly stall. So now let's see what happens here with that being said. But I have done a stall with this aircraft with power on and power off stalls, and it seems pretty accurate. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that here. So we'll start with the power off stall first, and that's to simulate if you're coming in for a landing and you stall your aircraft before you land, what do you do? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up for a landing configuration. So we're actually at 3,500 feet, so that's good. So we're going to take out our throttle, lose some airspeed, because you see the white arc, we need to get the airspeed indicator in that, so our flaps are not going to get damaged. Now we'll go ahead and drop the landing gear. Let's take a look at that beautiful landing gear, SimFans. Come down, and you can hear the wind from that. We'll go ahead and hit notch of flaps, another notch of flaps. Another notch of flaps. We got full flaps. Now we're gonna go ahead and just start pitching up, like if we're gonna land, and take all that out, that throttle. I'm gonna keep trimming. Hear the buffeting? I'm all the way back on the yoke, SimFans. All the way back. And this is pretty accurate. I think it would stall probably a little bit more than this. Let's see if we can't get it to fully stall. You can see I've got all the throttle out. Let's pull the prop out all the way. And it's just hard to stall. And that's true to real life, although you can get it to stall more than this. I've got the, here I can turn the yoke on so you can see it's all the way back. But the aircraft just continuously wants to fly and really not getting it into a full stall. So fairly, not completely realistic because you can still get it to stall more than this. Let me try adding some. We're gonna add, let's keep adding some, yep, and then there we go, there's buffeting. Add some trim, put the trim back, so it's stalling. Now the interesting thing is the horn went out there, but as you can see, it's not entering a full stall here. And now, given the Piper Arrow, or at least the Piper Warrior, you can get it to really stall, do a full stall. This one, really having a hard time getting it to full stall. I'll do the trim basically all the way back. And it's stalling, but it's not doing a nose down pitch. But anyway, okay, so with that, you gotta remember to turn out the, gotta trim that down, that wheel. Get that trimmed out. There we go. Get our prop going. Really, I had that all trimmed out, so as you can see, I couldn't really get into a full stall with the power off stall. Continue to trim that wheel. Goes very, very incrementally. That can be adjusted with the control mappings, but get the landing gear up. All right, so that was the power off stall, and as you can see, really didn't have too much of a problem there getting it to enter. We didn't actually get it to do a full complete stall. Now, in the real aircraft, you should be able to stall it a little harder than that. But I didn't, it seemed like before the patch and the update, I was able to actually get it to do a nose down on a power off stall. Where there, I really couldn't. So, and to be honest with all of you, I haven't done power on and power off stall since the last update from Just Flight on this, so it does seem like they had added more buffeting and sound effects to the stall, but in terms of the stall characteristics, I don't know, and maybe it was just the difference in air density and that, but let's go ahead and demonstrate a power on stall. So what this is demonstrating, SimFans, is you're in, normal flight and you're climbing out. Or not normal flight, but you're climbing out after a takeoff, rather. So we'll get our aircraft position, no landing gear or anything, and we're gonna go ahead and just keep on nose up, with full power until we can stall this bird. Keep our horizontal indicator straight. Got it all the way back, we're buffeting. I got the trim way back. I'll keep trimming it out. Trim back. Can we get this thing to stall fully? Again, you can see I've got the yoke all the way back. Turn that one on too. So we're going about 45 with no flaps. They're finally kind of pitched over, nosed over, but yeah, we'll trimming out. So I think since the update, I have to be honest, SimFans, I think maybe the stall characteristics of this aircraft actually aren't quite as realistic, and I don't know if that was from the update and changed or what, but I've ran this aircraft through the reins there with doing a power on, power off stall and actually got it to nose down, but it did not do so here. There's TNCM. So we're gonna come in and do a high altitude landing, and we'll see how the side slip to a landing is. But I do have to say this, and maybe Just Flight will fix that. I would suspect they will. But it seems like since the last update, maybe the stall characteristics of the aircraft have been changed, because typically you can stall the aircraft when both power off and power on stalls. It is hard, so Just Flight got that right, but we never got it to fully enter a stall or nose down. And so that, to me, Just Flight has some work to do there, okay? Let's go ahead and, so a side slip to a landing, fans, is what we'll demonstrate here, is simply, if you're coming into your runway and you're too high, you can side slip your aircraft. So in other words, you put the aircraft's fuselage, the length of your aircraft, into the airflow of the direction you're landing, and that'll bleed off a lot of airspeed. Because when you lose altitude, you'll gain airspeed, and that's not good, because that'll cause you to actually float across the runway. So a nice long runway like we have here at TNCM isn't so much of a problem with our aircraft. But you get into shorter runways and stuff, that's not what you want to do. And in just general, you don't want to have your aircraft floating down the runway before you land it. You want to hit the numbers, as they say. So we're gonna approach the runway 10 here a bit high, and then we'll see how it does with the side slip to a landing. And again, with the stalls and the side slip, I haven't done it since the last update, so we'll see how it does here. So let's go ahead and say, all right, well, we're coming in, we're a bit high here, so we want to enter a side slip to a landing. So we're too high, so now we need to get our aircraft slowed down and ready. So put the landing gear down. We'll go ahead and add our flaps. And so notice now, watch the airspeed indicator, SimFans. So notice it's gaining airspeed, so all we need to do to do a side slip is we put in right rudder and left aileron. And so you can see that airspeed bleeds down, and that does seem to work. And then you can kind of switch it, so you can do left full, right aileron. And so it looks like we're flying kind of crazy, but we're really not. We're just trying to bleed off that airspeed. And yeah, that's not too bad. Not completely accurate like in real life, but not horrible. We'll keep bringing back. So see, we didn't get too fast, and so now we just pull out our throttle. And there we go. All right, SimFans. So yeah, the side slip, I think that's pretty much the same. Not completely fully realistic, but not bad. Not bad. It definitely it does have the characteristics of doing a side slip to a landing where we're bleeding off the airspeed. So I definitely think Just Flight did a decent job there. I definitely think that's passable. You have some of the Payware aircraft where you're trying to do a side slip and it has absolutely no effect. So definitely credit to Just Flight for getting at least the characteristics and dynamics of doing the side slip to bleed off airspeed for that landing, lose altitude, and not increase airspeed. Definitely a passing grade there for sure. So again, I'm not trying to be overly critical here, but I just wanted to give an honest review of the aircraft from having flown the aircraft for real, and how does it perform. Again, I have most of my experience in a Piper Warrior. Very similar aircraft, doesn't have the high performance. It's not a complex aircraft, which simply means the Warrior doesn't have retractable landing gear like this Arrow does, and it has a fixed pitch propeller. This has a variable pitch. That's why we have the blue lever there. But yeah, all right. So we'll go ahead and shut the aircraft down. So do that. We're gonna pull that out a bit. We're gonna turn off avionics. We're gonna turn off our strobe. We're gonna turn off our taxi lights. And we'll just simply pull the mixture out. Parking brake set. And then once we have that done, we'll turn off the alternator and the battery. And there you have it, SimFans. Great aircraft. I do like it. I will say this. There's definitely still room for improvement. But overall, as I stated before, the aircraft is a good aircraft. Again, the best, in my opinion, of a general aviation aircraft if you want to pick it up. $40 is not a cheap price point. But I do think it's worth it, especially if you compare, or 45 rather. I do think it's worth it, especially if you compare it to the other aircraft that are payware out there for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And the exciting news is, we got an aircraft going by here. It's gonna keep getting better, SimFans. You know, the aircraft, the payware stuff is just gonna continue getting better. Just Flight, I have no doubt whatsoever, they'll continually improve this aircraft. So the good things about it, as we talked about, the aircraft performance, I think, is good. The textures are wonderful inside and out. The flight model's great. They definitely need to do some improvement on the stall characteristics as we saw as we went through that. But I have no doubt that Just Flight will improve upon that. The side slip to a landing, definitely passable. So yeah, overall, it does not feel like you're flying on rails. And that's one of the things I always watch for when I fly any aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator is, does it feel like you're flying on rails or does it feel like the real thing? And it doesn't feel exactly like the real thing, I will tell you that, but it does feel really good and it feels better than any of the other aircraft that's available right now today for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So SimFans, with that, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Okay, SimFans, well, there you have it, my first in-depth aircraft review for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I do hope you liked it. If you found value in this and you did like it, please smash the thumbs up button, do a like, please subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, SimFans, take care and blue skies. We'll see you soon.